एहसास न्याय का सबके लिए, आकाश न्याय का सबके लिए.
Hello everyone, this is Sayonara Teneslar, Member Secretary, Goa State Legal Services Authority. Welcome to today's virtual Juridicare Series. And for this series, we have with us Juliana Lohar, Coordinator, ERS. She will enlighten us on the topic, Impact of COVID on survivor of commercial sexual exploitation. Welcome, Ms. Juliana Lohar, and let us hear what you have to say.
Hi, I'm Juliana Lohar. I would be talking on the impact of COVID on survivors of commercial sexual exploitation. As most must not be aware of the situation that survivors of commercial sexual exploitation are going through. I work at ERS, an organization that works towards combating human trafficking for commercial sexual exploitation. We work closely with government and non-government agencies. We work towards rescue and rehabilitation of victims of commercial sexual exploitation. We work closely with the police, the Women and Child Welfare Department, the judiciary and the corporates. ERS has been working actively on the rehabilitation of victims of commercial sexual exploitation, whereby we have set up an economic alternative. We set up a commercial laundry for the survivors of commercial sexual exploitation. Right now, I would be focusing more on my experiences with the survivors of commercial sexual exploitation during the COVID time. When we talk about survivors of commercial sexual exploitation, we're talking about those victims who have exited from commercial sexual exploitation. They've taken an alternative livelihood, they're reliving their life and they're living in a dignified way. So during COVID, what we have found is that this group, they have been highly affected, because most of them have lost their job. They have been working as in housekeepings, in malls, in beauty parlor, in restaurants. A majority of them, due to COVID, have lost their employment. They are going through a lot of stress, anxiety, and a lot of disturbance, emotional disturbance in their life due to COVID. During this COVID time, there was a victim who was rescued in Goa about 3 years back. She was originally from Bihar, but she was working in Mumbai. This victim was in touch with us for some period of time, and during the outbreak of COVID, she got in touch with us once again, saying is, "Abhi main kya karu? Because I've lost my job. अभी मेरे पास काम नहीं है, नौकरी नहीं है, खर्चा मैं कैसे देखूँ? How will I manage expenses?" Because she was taking care of herself while working and was also sending money to her mother and her minor children. So here she was in this thing of how does she manage her livelihood. The other thing, she wanted to go back home. How does she get back to her native state? So here she was in complete disturbance, where we found a fear and uncertainty, and her anxiety was extremely high. She used to call up, endless period of time to just say, "Abhi kya karu, abhi kya hoga?" So she was one of them that I can recall of now. There was another victim who was rescued in Goa, and after she returned back to Mumbai, after a few days the lockdown was declared. She's an orphan and she was living with her roommates. This victim too used to call me up and used to say that कि मैंने इतना सोचा था कि मैं वापस जाकर मेरा लाइफ बनाऊंगी, I'll go, I'll make my life, I'll do something in my life. And here she was that अभी आगे क्या होगा, I don't know. There was a fear of क्या अभी हमको ये कोरोना वायरस लग जाएगा क्या. She also had this whole thing of, will I manage in life again? Okay, आगे मैं क्या करूँ? Along with that, she also felt is that she was being a burden to her roommates. She was not coming forth taking any relief that was being provided, because she felt she would be stigmatized. People would recognize her. So what we did is, we basically at ours, what we did is we felt it is important for us to have an understanding. So in order to have an understanding, we spoke to around 292 victims who have been rescued in Goa in the past 5 years from different parts of India. So what we did is we did a small study to understand the situation and also the impact that COVID has had on them. We found that most of the survivors who are going on with their life, who are managing their life, we found in the study that a majority of them are single women. The single women with their children. Here they were fine, and then they had started an economic pattern. They had started an earning. They were employed somewhere. So here we found most of them who had lost their employment. Along with that, also they were finding it difficult to negotiate with the landlord for the house rent because they were not able to pay the house rent. So they were finding it difficult कि उसके साथ मैं कैसे बोलूँ, क्या बोलूँ, वो क्या करेगा. तो ये बहुत आ रहा था कि they were not able to negotiate for the house rent. Along with that, we also saw a lot of the survivors during this time. They were not able to avail of the ration that was being provided by the civil supply because they didn't have ration card, or even they were not able to take the ration that was being provided by the politician because they didn't have the ration card. So they lacked ration card and they were not able to take the relief that was being provided to them. A lot of the survivors we saw is that they did not know this whole thing of online पे कैसे करने का, ठीक है. तो they found it difficult to get used to doing things online. Some of the survivors who were away from their native place and they were living at a place for the employment, they were unable to avail of schemes that were there for the migrants because the documents that they had were not necessarily of the place of their native place. So we saw a lot of the survivors were not able to avail of the scheme. We found that the 500 rupees which the government was giving to a lot of persons, majority of the survivor couldn't avail of it because they didn't have Jandan account. So we saw that these were some of the challenges, the difficulties that this group, the survivors, were facing, and they were not able to avail of it. A number of them also had this whole thing of that कि क्या अगर मैं जाकर किसी से कुछ लूँगी तो शायद उसको मालूम होगा कि मैं पहला धंधा पे थी. So they had this whole thing of a feeling of that they will be recognized that they were in prostitution. A feeling of a stigmatized feeling is what they were expressing. And also we saw a lot of them going through a lot of psychological issues. There were a number of them, the anxiety was high, like, it's during the lockdown time, there's a number of phone calls that I was attending to because they would keep calling and saying, abhi kya hoga, main theek hoongi nahi. So, the anxiety was very high. A lot of them had a lot of issues with regard to sleep. The sleep disorders that they were going through. Many of them were showing the verge of depression, and the stress level was extremely high. So these are some of the psychological issues that we found in the survivors during this COVID time. Basically what we feel is that it is important that in order to see the survivors, they are a special group because they are the ones who have exited. They have left prostitution, okay, and they have restarted their life. They are the ones who have faced a lot of trauma. The whole thing of, being in commercial sexual exploitation itself has been so traumatic for them. So a lot of them have recovered from trauma. And what we find is that now, during this COVID time, okay, they are being disturbed a lot. Emotionally, there is disturbance. The basic need, अभी रहने का जगह, घर का भाड़ा इतना है, खाने का इतना प्रॉब्लम है, ठीक है, राशन मिल रहा है कि नहीं, मिलेगा कि नहीं, ओके, lack of documents to avail of the schemes that's there by the government. So what we feel is this is an important group who has made an effort to exit and to restart their life. It's not only them, even the states, even the government and non-government organization have played a role in the exit from commercial sexual exploitation. So it becomes important that what we need to do is we need to see how we work closely with this group to prevent them from being re-trafficked once again. We need to see is that how can we have a special scheme for them, a scheme which will provide them with financial benefits which will take care of the house rent, the ration, education for children, the health. If this is taken care of, the stress level at once will come down, okay, and they can move on in their life once again. It is important that for the survivors, we link them up to the psychological services, the psychosocial need that's there. They get linked up to it and they avail of those services. So it's important that we all work together to see how the survivors are not re-trafficked once again. And it is important for us to prevent their re-trafficking. We need to protect them from the traffickers. The traffickers will make use of this time to see how these girls are re-trafficked again. So we need to see how we protect them. We provide them a safety so that they are not re-trafficked once again. So it's important that we all work towards this group as this is the most stigmatized and vulnerable group. So I think if all of us together work towards this group, we can see how they are not re-trafficked once again. Let us support the survivors of trafficking and let's work towards preventing their re-trafficking once again. Thank you.
You have just heard Ms. Juliana Lohar, coordinator from EARS, speaking on impact of COVID on survivors of commercial sexual exploitation. Thank you, Juliana. We will catch you all next Saturday for yet another session. Thank you.
राष्ट्रीय न्यायिक सेवा प्राधिकरण
न्यायालयातल्या कारवाई खातीर बरो वकील मेळून दिता.
वेळार योग्य कायदा खालची मदत आणि सल्लो दिता.
लोक अदालत द्वारा चड काळच्या केसीक बेगीन सोपयता
आणि ते बी सामके मोफत.
राष्ट्रीय न्यायिक सेवा प्राधिकरण बेस बरो न्याय बेस बरो समाज.
अधिक माहिती खातीर लागच्या न्यायालयातल्या न्यायिक सेवा प्राधिकरण कार्यालया लागीं संपर्क करा
वा टोल फ्री नंबर 151000 चेर फोन करा.